Okay, so just moving. Moving just to get ourselves down. So down in the legs. So gravity's drawing me down. But it's like, you know, in Tai Chi, there's always two minds. There's always like the passive mind and the active mind. So the passive mind is just allowing myself to be pulled down. I'm just sitting here in this field of gravity. But then the active mind is actually really, really trying to burrow into the ground. So I'm forcing myself down. So how do you do that? Yeah. How do you squeeze yourself into the ground? So basically you're using the legs against each other. So this leg is pushing me into this foot, and this leg is pushing me into this foot. So you feel that as pressure on the feet. So now let's just moving gently. So imagine two really strong forces balanced, and the movement between them when they become slightly out of balance. This is the feeling here. So just imagine the resistance or create the resistance to the movement. So this foot is trying to push you here, but this one is trying to resist it. Yeah, so one of the big sins in Tai Chi is what they call floating, which is when you're just drifting from in your movements. So the movements are actually the product of finely balanced, strong forces. So it's not really your own body that's moving, it's more like something's moving inside your body, something is being pushed through. So it's all in aid of generating spirit. So it says in the classics, it says if you concentrate on chi, then you'll be weak. But if you concentrate on spirit, then you'll be strong. And spirit is just the energy of contention. So it's the fire of contention. So when you have things battling it out, when you have contest, then you have spirit. So we have to create that contest within our own work. So the sinking is like the lid on the pressure cooker. Yeah, so I'm keeping this cap on my elevation, if you like, and it's that that's causing everything to bubble and threaten to explode. So we're just creating within the site of the body a high pressure environment where things can happen. So it's these places here that need to relax. Yeah, so this yielding energy has got a lot to do with just the flexibility of the spine, you know, so we'll get into that in a minute. So just let, you know, your spine should be able to whip, you know, like this. And so it's that brings the energy up from the ground. Okay. So now let's just stand. Again, just imagine that pressure, just feel the pressure driving you down. And now the belly, so let's just tighten this. It's just getting this like a tight center. So it pulls in and it pushes out. That's it. So you've got a local mind, which is here, but you've got a general mind, which is with the sinking. So you don't want the activity here to let you come up. So everything that I'm doing here is helping me settle deeper into my legs, into my root. And again, try and feel it as two forces that are always operating. So as I'm pulling in, it's already trying to expand out. And then as it's expanding out, it's already contracting. So it's as far from relaxation as you can get, really. It's the sort, you know, it's relaxed in the sense that it's ready. It's the sort of relaxation that you'd need to fight well. And then back to here. It's like a crab. You know, so the legs are doing this, the arms are doing this. So you're like a pair of pincers. So what we'd like also is for the spine to do the same thing. So my tail is coming under, my head is coming over. So this is basically hollow chest. Okay, now let's just get down. So just coming down, squatting. And just moving from leg to leg a little bit. Use the elbows to push your knees out. Let's see. Yes, so feel the Dan Shen closer to the ground than normal. So the Dan Shen gets a sort of more like ruthless mood. So it's got that sort of cold, gritty hardness of the ground coming into it. And then just bringing your weight over the hands. So just get the bridge of the arms, like it's like an arch to support your weight. And then just rock back. And then forwards again. And then back. And forwards. And back. Yeah, so we're just trying to, you know, rouse the temper. Yeah? Make ourselves a little bit almost angry with the difficulty of the task. So just feel, you know, how, the sort of intensity that's required in your muscles to actually hold your body. So it's much easier to feel it in the arms because they're not used to it. But we want to feel it in the legs as well. So this is why we sink them. The sinking, if you do it properly, makes the legs just a little bit annoyed, and that brings intensity and spirit into the body. and then up again. Okay, now just feel, just sort of get down, but don't worry. So normally we've got the bum stuck in like this, yeah. So now just go down and just imagine you're trying to sort of hold something. You're holding yourself down with the hands as much as anything. That's it, that's it. Yeah, so it's almost like you haven't quite come back up to vertical. You're more like a chimpanzee or something. Yeah. That's good. And then just go down and fists on the ground. So the legs wide apart. That's it. And just imagine someone sitting on the small of your back. So that part of your body is being driven down into the legs. And then just keeping the back, the lower back where it is, just bring the head up. Yeah, so you're just really using the back muscles. That's it. That's it. Yeah. And then just back down again, fists on the ground. Bring the weight over the fists. And then back over the feet. Try and get deep down as you possibly can. And then just bring the head up. Yeah, so we're just aiming for intensity. Pain, intensity, agony, that's the best word. So agony just comes from the Greek agon, which just means contest. Yeah? So the agony is the pain of the contest. And it's that produces the spirit. And down again. So you just play with it. You just got to get yourself into a position of difficulty and play with it. And one more. Just bring that. Yeah, so your back is really strong. Yeah. And then just open. And now just back to here. And now just get this in. Okay, now head suspended. And the tail heavy dropping down. That's it, that's it. Real riding horse, so real bow-legged. And then that will just allow this to drop freely. Just imagine the tail hanging down, dropping through a hole in the ground. And now just tipping a little bit like we were doing last week. Yeah, so I'm just trying to get my tail just to point down the leg by tipping my hips a little bit. Yeah, so if anything, the weight is here, but the tail is extending down. Yeah, so we're just making back legs really. So this is like back leg energy. So here, tipping this way now to get the tail. You see, it will turn you slightly this way, and also it will turn this leg into a back leg. And then tipping the hips this way and down. So just feel your tail, the extension of your spine like a needle that you're trying to inject into the ground. through this leg, which is actually straightening. So ostensibly, I'm just turning from one side to the other. But I'm turning in order to get this extension of the tail. So I'm turning here. That pulls the tail up. And then I turn here and here. The spine is just relaxing down the leg. That's it. And then here, just feel that release. Something in here just drops down. And that means that something here goes up. Yeah, so I have one leg that's supporting me, if you like, supporting the weight, but then the other leg becomes this channel to the spine. Yes. Yeah, so this is like my back becoming this circle. Yeah, so the circle is behind me, like I'm leaning back on a big ball. And then here, and now feel the spine injecting down the leg, right into the heel. So I'm using this leg to push my tail down. I'm using this leg to squeeze against that. So the two legs are really fighting. And that's only possible because my sinking is good enough. And if I wasn't sinking properly, then it would be throwing my body up all the time. So one more, so just here, feel that you're driving down. So it's basically just the warrior poses of yoga, but with this idea of an extending spine. So my tail is dropping down my leg. And then one more this side, just twist and release here. That's it, that's great. Yeah, so it's a warrior pose, so it feels quite sort of brazen and aggressive. Yeah. And then just back to front. And now just the same thing, but just very gently. So now just tipping here and tipping here. So imagine your tail hanging down and you're just waving it around. So one. So here. Yeah, so it's always a fine balance we're trying to strike, because the more effort you use, the more force you bring in, the more your bum will tend to stick out. So you need a mind that's got the sort of discipline to just keep the tail hanging down. And so it's all practices really is the practice of discipline. And this is why if you find someone that's just good at anything really, then, and good because they've led a disciplined life at some point, then they're going to be able to connect with spirit in a certain way. And they just make good companions. Yeah? their company is, it's like comradeship, you know, companionable. They're not just, they don't just have good energy. And so we're trying to discipline the mind by disciplining the body. This is John's big contention, you have to go through the body. And discipline just means making yourself do something you don't want to do. So there needs to be that element in your life, otherwise your energy never really develops. Yeah, so here, I don't really want to volunteer this movement by doing this. Yeah. I want the feeling that it's being forced upon me. It's almost like I'd rather it didn't happen. So it's exactly the way you would feel if someone else was forcing your hips up and down with their hands. Yeah, so part you're thinking, Jesus, my legs are hurting so much. I'd rather they weren't doing this, but they are. And now we just want to get it moving on the opposite, on the orthogonal plane. So this one, so the tail going back a little bit, like you're sticking your bum out, and then the tail coming under. Yeah. So it's just rocking the pelvis. So you're trying not to stick your bum out. So basically sticking my bum out here would be this. Yeah. So what I'm trying to do is just get a rotation here to get the tail pointing back without doing this. So there should be no movement backwards and forwards of this bone. It's just rolling around this axis. So here, this is my tail coming between my legs. And then this is my tail extending backwards. So it's just pelvic rotation. And as the tail comes under, it will bring the head over. And as the tail goes back, it will send the head back. And all the time, you're relaxing into the legs. Yeah, so when you push your tail backwards, it will tend to bring you out the legs. So here, and then under. Yeah, so this is the yielding phase. And then this is the attacking phase. Yeah, so you'd only hit this very momentarily because you're so exposed. This is so open. Yeah, so they say to actually keep to a yielding mind. So you'd always either be in this phase or going into it. And then here your energy just pops out for a second. And then you roll the tail back. It's great, yeah. So just feel that pincer, like your tail is coming under the person and your head is coming on top of them. So you're actually catching them like this as well as like this. Yeah. Yeah, so there's this sense of collapse, but it's a design. It's a collapse that you intend. It's the front collapses, but the back expands and gets strong. This is the tail going out, and then this is the tail coming under. Tail going out. Tail coming under. So when you do this one, the yielding one, make sure it's the tail coming under that starts it all, otherwise your bum will stick out. So here. That's it. That's it. Like your tail's like a big scoop that's scooping from the ground. And then your tail is just extending backwards. And now tail scooping under. And now just hold it here. Yeah. And now just relax. Try and keep that shape in the spine, but just relax the tail down. Yeah. So this is basically neutral. Yeah, so we want our neutral place to be that place that keeps a yielding mind, to get to that place of just about to come back in rather than just about to come back out. Yeah. So we're going into this quiet but dull inner space. Now, this is what's difficult about the sort of work that we do, is that it's boring. It's boring and it's fundamentally depressive. So you're trying to teach people to quieten down, become less active, become less excitable. That's always going to be depressive once you've got past the first flush of, oh, aren't I peaceful now? So we then have to just go deeper. Yeah, so for me, the main disease, if you like, of modern life is shallowness. You know, people are just tremendously shallow because they're so distracted. So they're content with surface. No one wants to go deep because to go deep is painful. Yeah. So I mean, there was a time, you know, when happiness just would not have been a concern. I mean, if you'd said to my parents when they were younger, you know, are you happy? They would have looked at you like you were mad. What's that got to do with anything? Yeah. I'm useful. I'm doing something. Yeah. So this is the idea of an internal work. You set something in motion that takes you places. It's not your own design. It's taking you to places you'd rather not go and taking you to places you never imagined. So it's like the opposite of tourism. Okay, now just bringing the hands in and down. Okay, now just feel the tail. Just send the tail back slightly, and that will allow you to express something. So something comes out and up. Yeah? So when you become active, basically you're coming out of your root and out of your body. So you're coming outwards. Yeah? So up and out. And now from the tail is now sticking back a little bit. Just let it drop down. Let the tail drop down and the hands will start drifting towards each other. And then pull the tail under, and that will bring the hands together. And then they can drop down. Yeah. So we're just doing a simple circuit of just out and up towards each other, and then pressing down into the down chair. And we're wanting that basically to come from my tail going back, and then my tail slowly coming under. Yeah. So from here, I'm just tail going back a little bit. That gets my arms to come out and up. And now I drop the tail down and started coming under. Yeah. So it's like you're eating energy. You're sending your hands out and gathering energy by sending the tail back. And then using the tail, you're pulling that energy in and driving it down into the down chair. It's like it doesn't want to come, so you're really having to push here, but pushing from the tail coming under. So out, very slight rocking in the pelvis to get the tail out, and now, so it's all from the pelvis basically. And then just driving down. Again, just imagine you're in a really viscous fluid, like a really viscous liquid, and this is quite difficult to make these movements. You know? So here you're really having to force it out, and now here, bring it in, and then just drive it down. You're really pulling the down shin in, you're pulling the tail under, and then it reverses. Pulling and down. 1. 2. Now let's take it up. So same idea, tail going out. And then tail dropping down. And now bringing the tail under. Again, this is like a real pincer. And then it's so much like a pincer, the hands fold in. And again up. So again, you're driving. Just imagine the resistance to this. So you're having to work really hard. Whoa. I remember when John was trying to get me to wake up all those years ago. He just said, when you practice your form, your body should be so tense, you're just shaking all the way through it. Yeah? So you just imagine a resistance, this. So you really know, if you had to do something that required a lot of explosive energy, then you'd have to use your spirit. So here it's like we're using explosive energy, but in absolute slow motion. Yeah, so here this is basically just, yeah. So that's the energy that I'm using, but I'm just being forced to keep it slow because there's so much resistance to it. It's like those bodybuilders, you know, if you see them doing their push, the bar moves very slowly. That's because the bar is so damn heavy. If the bar suddenly became a lot lighter, you wouldn't see the movement, it would be so fast. So here. That's it, it's great. So pregnant with meaning, pregnant with energy. There's so much energy, even though it's slow motion, but it's not weak. Yeah. So you just need, it's just any arbitrary sequence really. It's the intensity you invest it with that's important, not the form. So it's the content. And then just down to here. And now one arm out, the other arm out. Good. And now let's take it down again. So just coming down and onto the balls of the feet. Yeah. That's it. That's great. So just feel the wobble. Okay, let's just try a couple. So now you really have to be careful. Round to the front. Yeah, so your feet are making micro adjustments all the time to balance your center of gravity, which is shifting a little bit because of the movement of the arms. So up, out, one, and in, and one more, one, out, one, now just out with the feet again. And now just twisting the body. So one arm on the ground and one arm up. And just try and get your eyes looking up at the hand on top. You're just aiming for that twist in the body. And then just bring that hand down and then twist the other way. And then the other side. And then one more this side. And then just to here with the elbows on the knees. And now the same thing, so just twisting. So you've got one elbow on one knee. So this is easier if you like. So just feel this, the elbow driving down into the knee. So feel the line of strength through your body from that leg, which the elbow is resting on, all the way up, across the spine, up the arm. And then the other side. Twist. Again, really rest on that knee. Keep the body strong so that the support is available. And then this side again, so elbow on the knee and up. Let's just hold it until you really feel the elbow nestling into the ground through the knee. And then one more the other side. And this is what I miss from this exercise, so blame him. And then back, but now just the hands on the knees. Yeah, that's it, that's it. Yeah. So it feels very similar to, when we came up from the ground, it feels quite strong. And now the same thing, so just really lean on this arm, but feel it as being like a pillar of support. It's like, so we're keeping tension in order to connect with the supportive aspect of the body. So feeling the strength from the ground, up the arm, through my shoulders, across the back, into this arm that's going up. And then just the other side. So first of all, just nestle in, and then so all the time relaxing across the sacrum to keep everything down there. And then one more this side. So really drive down that leg. And then one more here. First of all, just get really deep in the bones. Yeah, so this should feel really difficult. I mean, it's easy to do, but it's just difficult to sustain And now just back to here. Yeah. So now just feel across the back. Looks good. Yeah. And then you can just play with the tail. Yeah. So just pulling the tail under very slightly just gets you into this sort of yielding, drawing sort of mood. And it just gives, in a way, it makes it just look a lot more subtle and more sort of dangerous than when you actually just brazen and just aching for a fight. You know? So when you send the tail out, it will tend to express from here when you pull the tail under. So you're just drawing that tail under just enough to get some suction, a little bit of hollowness here. And so you're withdrawing yourself so that something else can expose itself. So the energy in the room, but also the energy in my energetic body, from my spine, basically from my back. It's like going for a walk in nature, you know. In order to see nature, you need to just basically be still and quiet, and then it will come out and expose itself to all those animals that have run away because you're approaching. So this is how, in order to be, you need to conceal yourself, you need to hide. It's beautiful. So there's a sense of drawing into the Danshan. The Danshan is just, it's my own gravitational center. It's sucking every part of me down into it or up into it from the legs. So this morning I was chatting to Ty and she said, "Dad, why are Americans so loud?" So it's like we're just trying to become the opposite of an American tourist. So here, just into the Danshan. Okay, now let's just work with the wall a bit. So you need a wall. Have you all got a wall that's strong enough to support a bit of pressure? So this is just another way you can just work on the intensity. Yeah? So just basically just leaning on the wall and just using the legs to try and push through it. It doesn't have to be very, the pressure doesn't have to be very strong. It just has to be coming through your body. Yeah, so this support is trying to press the ground that way, and that's forcing my hand to drive through the wall. So I'm looking to inject all the time. My feet are injecting into the ground. My hands are injecting into the wall. And when you inject into a wall, the energy will either go up or it will go down, depending upon your spine. So you want the net push on the wall to be upwards, if anything. So you really got to bring your belly forwards. And stay off the heels. Yeah? So you're just working from the toes, the ball of the foot. And again, just keep the shoulders relaxed, the elbows down. So you're just pushing the ground backwards in order to push the wall forwards and up. And again, you just want to work hard, so you're sort of developing a little bit of anger and intensity and spirit, a bit of sweat, maybe a few tears. And then when it gets difficult with the arms, just come onto your forearms. So now it's your elbows. So the elbows are driving into the wall. And just feel the twisting in the spine. And now just leaning on the wall, just with your shoulder, yeah? So again, just using this leg to drive down in order to push the shoulder into the wall. Yeah, so most martial arts, they'll use like a dummy, like a wooden dummy, which they can do the same thing with. There's this sort of basically just trying to get their energy to come out of their body at any point, and then just bring the hip onto the wall here. Yeah? So you just now I'm pressuring the wall with my hip again from the leg. And then just roll around, so you're on your back. And again, it's the sacrum you've got on the wall, not the shoulders. Yes, I'm working the ground with my legs in order to get pressure pumping into the wall from my sacrum. Yeah, so you're sort of basically massaging your sacrum against the wall. All from the legs, yeah? So really driving and then just roll around, so you're on the other shoulder. So let's try the hip first. Yeah. So you're just really sort of getting physical with the wall in the absence of another person to bully. And then shoulder. And then round here again. And then now let's just go back to here. And now just feel that. You know, so feel that hardness that was driving into your body from the wall. And just use that, direct that downwards, you know. So the legs are really braced against the ground like they were when you were leaning into a wall. Yeah? So that's the sort of engagement that you need. If you imagine that you're dealing with another person that's pretty much your own size and weight and in front of you, and if you want to uproot them, we were taught, you're just sort of cutting vegetable energy, but really, in some sense, you need to be able to do it physically. Yeah? You need to be able to get underneath them and just wrench them off the ground, but very forcefully. So you need to have that capacity. Otherwise, this is all just theoretical. Yeah? And that just requires this muscular, gritty engagement with the ground and a real willingness to fight, yeah? A real willingness to engage your energy. Not necessarily to hurt someone, but just to, you know, just to really enjoy the fight, the tussle, letting your energy out, being hurt, you know, being hitting, yeah. It's something that we just never, we don't let it into our lives, yeah, because it's just not politically correct. And this is why one of the reasons we're so weak. Well, energetically anyway. So when I'm working with a student, you know, I know it's getting into interesting territory when I feel really compelled to bite them. If I really want to sink my teeth into their flesh, then I know it's getting somewhere. Yeah? I generally sort of hold myself back, but sometimes I can't resist. So, you know, so something in you is just boiling, bubbling. You know, John wrote a set of poems which are basically incomprehensible about spirit and everything. And he called them the iceberg poems, because for him, it's like what we experience, what we encounter in our bourgeois lives is just the tip of an iceberg. So you've got this wodge of enormous energy that's basically at your disposal, but we've just got no idea really how to activate it. And in order to activate it, you basically just have to become like a wild animal in some sense, you know? So you have to drop all that cultural conditioning, all that politeness and niceness, and just be willing to just scream and just leap into the fight, regardless of your own safety. It's like the Vikings, you know, going into battle with their sword. Without their sword, there's no spirit. And so their life is wasted because they've died a useless death, you know. And like we were talking about last week, every now and then you catch a glimmer of just how strong you actually have to be to contain this energy. And that's when it gets a bit depressing, because you realize how far you have to go. Yeah, so Tai Chi's a warrior path. It's not a consciousness path, it's not all this new age shit. It's all to do with really waking up the spirit and fighting. But fighting within your own body. Yeah, so the battle is inside. It's with your own stupidity, your own resistance, your own sleepiness. Yeah, so what we're working on is really just, remember the pressing that we used to do? So we'd just be basically just leaning into each other like this, yeah? And really just getting that flow to pass through from you into the other person, but also being able to support their flow. So it's really just that. I mean, basically just working on that, but just in a lot more vigorous way. That's great. Okay, so now let's just bring it back. And then push down. Yeah, so it's like every movement you have to make is like an irritation and requires real sort of focus. Yeah, John used to say that, you know, you want to feel like inside your molten rock. Yeah, so I think what he meant was not so much the heat, not so much the heat of magma, but just that slippage. You imagine when you see like lava coming out of the ground on videos, on movies and things, it sort of oozes out. It's got this oozy quality, and the lava sort of slips over itself. It's got this, it's like this constant shearing going on inside it. So that's the feeling inside your own body. There's like this molten magma that's just sliding and slipping around, and it's quite slow and viscous and heavy. Okay, very good. You've survived another one. Yeah, it's just trying to sort of appreciate the sort of intensity of work that needs to be done to actually really get into your own body. You know, so it's not really about the body moving. It's about getting movement into my body, to be possessed by movement. You know? And I was reading about Mozart's string quartets, you know, and they were talking about these two great string quartets from the 60s called the Amadeus and the Italiano, yeah? And this person was saying they used to be at work at the hotel where they used to stay in Vienna. He says when the Amadeus came back from a concert, they were just high. They were all bubbly and high, you know, as one tends to be after one's performed. Whereas when the Italiano came back, she said they looked like death. They were so tired. So they've just put everything into it, you know? And this is basically the way, you know, it's like, you know, when you're brought up in like a working class environment, you know what it means to work hard, because you've been exposed to men that just are killing themselves with hard work. They're sacrificing their own body to work so hard, and just that feeling of a man that's just completely shattered because he's just beaten his body up all day and get home, yeah, and they don't even have the energy to speak, yeah. But it's like but there's a quality to their presence which is very, very deep, because it's like they've just gone through. They can't afford to harbor any shit, otherwise they wouldn't be able to do the day's work, yeah. So they get home and maybe you'll have an hour or so with them before they have to basically escape the kids and the wife and go to the pub, yeah? In order basically just to recover, just to get drunk enough to relax and recover for the next day's work. Yeah? But yeah, that's the way it should feel after a good workout. You shouldn't necessarily feel good. You should just feel very deeply tired. Yeah, like you worked a part of yourself that doesn't normally get touched. Yeah, and that will always leave you shattered. You know, if maybe not immediately. Yeah, but the next day, you know, you'll think, oh shit, why did I do that? Yeah. And that's basically the feedback. So the feedback is how awful you feel the next day. Yeah? It's like when we went to see Dorian Yates, the greatest bodybuilder in the world. Someone said, "Do you ever get depressed?" He says, "The only time I'm depressed is when I'm not in pain, because then I know I didn't work hard enough the day before." Yeah. So it's like you just use that. You recognize that feeling of just knowing that you've pushed yourself too far the day before, and so that is your guideline. Right? And so it just, John used to say, I remember John said to me once, he said, at least twice a week, you should work physically so hard that you vomit before the end of the session. Yeah? So this was John's standards, yeah. And so it's like, it's just, and in order to get to that, because in order to get to that point, you really have to activate your spirit. It's like, if you're a weight trainer and you want to lift that bar above your head and you've never lifted that weight before, it's like an impossible task, You've only ever lifted 20 kilos less, and now you have to lift this bar. So how do you do it? You just have to access part of yourself that can do the impossible, that's capable of miracles, and that's your spirit, yeah? And so that's the skill, really. The skill is being able to activate your own spirit. So this is what a fighter needs. Yeah, the fighter has to be able to basically just lose his temper, just like that. But the temper it comes out and then it's back in again. They've got a handle on it. Yeah, and because they can't afford to, because nothing can be planned. Yeah. So John always used to say, if ever you get into a fight, just hope it happens quick enough that you don't have time to think, because if you think, you'll just ruin it. Yeah. But if you just rely on your body to just respond naturally with spirit, then you'll do much better. Yeah. So this is what we're trying to touch. We're trying to touch realms that our normal lives never get into because they don't need to. Yeah. So now you can get by quite easily as a law-abiding bourgeois citizen without ever having to rouse your spirit. Yeah. And so this is, so if we can get away with being lazy, then we will. And so, this is what discipline is. Discipline is forcing yourself to take the difficult path. Yeah. When everyone is telling you to take the easy path. Yeah. Okay.